All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Thank you all. Oh, my goodness. Yes. It is so terrific to have everybody here. You know, I love to watch the fall of a nation with a group of my friends, and that's what we have here in this community. It's terrific, isn't it? I have Kim here. In fact, we would have...
Kim, how are you?
We would have started on time, but I was busy asking Kim. I asked Kim, did you start on time yesterday? And she said, I think we did. Did we started on time, didn't we? Yeah, I mean, within like a few minutes. And then Tony backed her up.
Is that what my voice sounds like?
Yeah.
That's the Kim voice that you do?
That's actually the voice. Everybody sounds like that to me, not just you. Yeah. Tony, when he responded to you, sounded like, yeah, I think so. I think we made it. Yeah. Okay. So everybody sounds like that. But then Kim gave me a hard time for not listening to and watching the entire show yesterday, which I didn't do. If I could have listened and watched the entire show, I would have done the entire show, Kim.
No, even when you're on a cruise ship, you watch the entire show.
I watch it in delay. Yeah, I watch it in delay. And then
you come back with comments. Like I get air checked by Mark Thompson. And I did not. This time, no air check.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think you should take it as a compliment. I, in fact, thought of it as, well, you can watch, but it's going to drive you nuts that they're not putting the right banner in or blah, 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 blah. Why don't you just let Kim do it? You know she'll do a good job. And that's exactly the question I had with the comment I had for myself. And then Kim, this is the thing that took us another week. We started about 2 minutes late today.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
Yeah, she said, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you didn't watch. It's not in your nature not to watch.
We could try ignoring it, sir.
Yeah, I don't know what to say.
Not watch the show.
She's out of control. She's out of control. I mean, I think you owe me an apology. I mean, I don't know. I'm not capable of saying to you, I don't believe you. I'll tell you one thing.
Owe me an apology.
I don't believe. No, I am going to come over the top on your I don't believe you with my own I don't believe you.
Why are you yelling?
I mean, if you did watch the show, then you owe me an apology for saying that it was it was not telling me that it was great. And if you didn't watch the show, then you owe me an apology for not watching. See?
Well,
double apologies.
I really didn't follow that, but I will tell you that I looked at one thing, and it wasn't the show.
What?
I looked at how long the show was.
Oh, and how long?
Do you know how long it was?
57 minutes.
It was an hour and 56 minutes, I think. And that made me think, well, maybe they...
Yeah, it was about 3 minutes short. Right.
Yeah. So you started late and you ended early. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I ended on time.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done?
I'm just saying.
I ended on time.
You started this. You started it. I didn't start with this. I was all, hey, you did a great job. I didn't need to check it out. But you were always, I don't believe you. You need to get it. So, okay. So you want to get it on? Let's get it on. The show's 2 hours. You'll do 2 hours.
Not yesterday.
When you fill in for me, you do 2 hours.
It was 1 hour, 57 minutes.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm sorry. Did I shortchange you 3 minutes?
I stand corrected.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
My bad. I'm sorry.
There you are. Everybody, welcome. Glad you could see Mommy and Daddy fight. We will pick up a couple of loose ends. And I know there is a huge winter storm that is affecting so many of us. We come to you live every day from California. It's 11 to 1, the hours that the show's on live in California. But many of you watch on the East Coast, so 2 to 4 there. And I know there's a huge storm affecting a lot of states. I mean, it's not just the East Coast and West Coast, but a 1,500-mile stretch of the eastern U.S. being affected by this substantial snowstorm. So if you're traveling, it's hitting Chicago. It's hitting, as I say, portions of the East and Washington, D.C., up to 6 inches of snow.
Yeesh.
Snow is piling up from Kentucky to the mid-Atlantic states. That's what's happening as we speak, and their power outages and traveling is a bit on the treacherous side. I attended a rally in Washington, D.C. today, says Bill. This was a rally for union government workers, solidarity with my union peeps. Many members of Congress attended. F you, Trump and Musk was a popular phrase. It is worth noting, as Bill Doherty has noted, that there are unions associated with federal employees.
Yep.
You can't just go in there and wield this axe the way they are. Yet
The unions are saying don't take the deal.
Friggin' cold today in Niles, Ohio, says Rich. Hello to everybody in Niles, Ohio. We have quite the show today. I'll just quickly mention it to you, and then I'll pick up some loose ends, and we'll move ahead. This is speaking of treacherous, there is treachery in the U.S. government. It is it's a scary time in America, and yet I don't know, it's landing with the public in sort of softer ways. But we'll get into some of that. I do want to mention, though, Jayar Jackson's coming up, bottom of the hour. He of the Young Turks and TYT, the largest online news show in the world. And they've been a great source of independent news media for many years now. And I'm looking forward to having JR here. I will tell you that David K. Johnston, who normally joins us on Tuesdays, will join us tomorrow. He had a scheduling conflict, and so that will happen tomorrow. So all of you David K. Johnston fans, and there are a jillion of you, I don't blame you. He will join us tomorrow, so we're looking forward to that. Any other old news before I move in? I did want to pick up just a couple of things from Super Bowl. One thing is that it was, of course, a blowout of the Kansas City Chiefs. I went to Las Vegas. Some of you follow me on social media. I don't do any politics in social media. I just do, kind of fun stuff or whatever, lifestyle stuff. Anyway, my point in mentioning is that on social media, I did post a little bit of this party that I attended. But so you have all these jerseys, Chiefs, Eagles, etc. There's all of that stuff and the foam fingers. But it was a blowout, right? So the Chiefs fans, some of them left early. The guy in front of me, and by the way, I was a +1. I'm not like the high roller here. The guy in front of me is an invited guest. The guy in front of me bet on the Chiefs. Guess how much he bet on the Chiefs?
$10,000.
Yeah, that would be a scary bet. $10,000. I agree.
For a high roller, right?
I mean, even 50,000 or 100,000. He bet $400,000 on the Chiefs.
Ouch! He bet a house.
He was right in front of me, and I'm
in the
watching
Midwest.
him. He had some girl with him. Well, I'm sure there's anyway, he left early. That's all I say. But he was not the only Chiefs fan. There was this Chiefs fan online who felt Trump, having attended the Super Bowl, was the reason the Chiefs lost. Here she is.
That's the other reason why we didn't win, because the fucking Trump was at the goddamn game. God damn it! Trump should not have been at our fucking game. Fucking why we didn't win.
What are you doing, Tony? I want to see the whole. I want to hear. I want to see the. In her words, I want to see the whole goddamn clip.
She's kind of freaking out.
No, it kind of, because it was a jump cut. I thought it was because.
Okay, I thought. Would you like to apologize?
Would you like to apologize?
No, nobody would like to apologize.
I want to just run the whole clip. Go ahead, because she blames Trump for the
Man.
loss.
At our fucking game. Fucking. And that's the other reason why we didn't win. That's the other reason why we didn't win, because the fucking Trump was at the goddamn game. God damn it!
Oh.
Trump should not have been at our fucking game. Fucking. And that's the other reason why.
I love the crying.
Wow.
Yeah. I wish for all of us the kind of connection that woman feels to the Kansas City Chiefs. I wish for all of us that kind of connection in any relationship in your life, be it spouse, child, pet. I feel no connection that would drive me to that kind of outburst. And I feel a void because of it. I'd like to have what that lady has. Anyway.
I think what that lady has is maybe something you don't want.
I think she had a couple of pops, is what she had.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I wanted to mention also, before I get into all the Trump and the politics, Mark, all the Trump stuff. Oh, I got an email saying that. Hang on a second. Hadn't planned to do it right this instant, but.
Are we supposed to not talk about the Trump stuff?
I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, Are you kidding? That's the problem. That too many are of the feeling that, oh, I don't want to, politics are just burning out on it. I know I can't do anything.
So look away while the nation burns? Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going back to my garage and I'm going to figure out how to resist appropriately. Oh, really? Really? Well, you just make sure you keep track on some level of what you're resisting, because it's not just a hashtag slogan. You need to know what's happening in your country. And I got I understand also some people come here from various platforms and aren't expecting so much politics or so much Trump or whatever, but I think it's a contemporary concern. And I mean, the contemporary concern, I'd argue. So and it's multifaceted. There's a lot going on. So this is a news/politics show, and there will be opportunities to talk to entertainers, to talk to people who have nothing to do with sort of the mother's milk of the show. But the mother's milk is what's going on in the news. We talk about politics of mayoral races that are key, congressional races that are key. But as you begin to see that maybe mayoral and congressional races may not matter because you have an executive who's seizing power, I mean, I think it's important to know what's going on. So, sorry, but, but I did want to give a shout out to Craig Riddle, who is our latest Patreon subscriber.
Big shout out.
Yeah, big shout out. Came in for $10 a month, so that matters.
Nice.
Yeah. And there was a guy who, gosh, I can't find it now, but I'll share it to you.
I have this from Debbie. $10 from Debbie.
The coolest thing for me about the Super Bowl was the young 22-year-old rookie that scored a touchdown on his birthday. Best birthday ever.
Yay.
Exactly. That is exactly right. Well, it was a hell of a game to see this vaunted, brilliant team, the Chiefs, dominant, although admittedly having won a bunch of close games this past year.
What do you think?
It was wild to see them get blown out.
What do you think happened? Did they just have a bad day? Were the Eagles that much better? What happened there?
I think the Eagles are that much better. I really do. I'll tell you one example. When you can sack a quarterback, Mahomes, who is one of the most mobile, unsackable quarterbacks in the league, 6 times you can sack him without blitzing once. That's a 4-man rush that sacked him 6 times. And the times he wasn't sacked, he was rushed, he was hurried. One of those interceptions was the result of getting bumped and jostled as he threw. So I think that the Eagles are for real.
Yeah.
The Eagles are for real. And they're the champs and deserve that spot. So it was wild to go to that party. It was like shrimp for days, and I don't know. They had all kinds of pulled pork and this. I don't eat any of that stuff.
No.
But
they have a veggie table.
They had a vegan Philly slider, which was great. I had 2 of those. And there were some, and they had some salad and stuff. It was good, but I mean, it went on and on and on. I mean, there was and of course that's not even counting dessert. Dessert's all this decadent stuff. Yeah. It was great. It was really quite cool. So anyway, that's the story on the Super Bowl. I'll find that email later, and we'll.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Before I get deep into politics, I wanted to mention that there is a recall underway. Tuna sold at Costco, Walmart, Trader Joe's, Kroger, and other national grocery chains. I'm chuckling because it's like everybody. It's being recalled because of food poisoning and other dangers. This according to federal officials. Again, the federal officials at USDA and all the oversight for everything soon will melt away. So grab these warnings and recalls while you can, friends. Tri-Union Seafoods, based in El Segundo near Los Angeles, issued a voluntary recall on February 7th This is for many of their canned tuna products sold under the Geneva, Van Camp's, H-E-B, and Trader Joe's brand names. The tuna was shipped to stores in 27 states, according to a notice published Monday. That's yesterday. Tri-Union Seafoods reported it was notified the, quote, easy open pull tab can
cut you?
It causes a defect. No. It leaks.
Oh.
So it's contaminated. The food inside gets contaminated with Clostridium and botulinum.
Oh.
Neither one of those do you want.
What?
I know.
No, thanks.
Yeah. You want to pass on both those. That causes food poisoning, can even lead to death. This is pretty serious.
Yeah.
So that recall again for canned tuna sold at Costco, Walmart, Publix, and in 27 states. You can Google the list and see if your state qualifies. All right. It's ugly, but that's
The Mark Thompson Show.
If I can save a life today because I've waved you off a can of tuna, it feels as though it's a job well done. So, before I move on, Kim, is there anything that you would like to attend to? Is there any old business that you need mentioned or focused upon? I feel like you're sitting on, I don't know what, hostility, grievance. You're like a little Trump. You know, you just want to get your shot in. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Your first act would be to pursue some recriminatory agenda, if you were to be given, and recriminatory is a ding word. I'm going to move on, though, if you have nothing.
I can tell you that Steve Bannon has accepted a kind of a plea deal, pleading guilty for no jail time in that wall case.
Yes. Why don't we let's do that in some law and disorder? Okay. Tony, you ready? We'll have Kim kick us off with that story as we give you the long and the short of it. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law. You're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
There is breaking news of this hour that Steve Bannon, who never goes down, he's a smack talker from the jump.
Never goes down. He just got out of jail.
Well, he just got out of jail because he wouldn't go down. Yeah. Go ahead. Haul me off to jail. That's Bannon's thing. You got to take one for the team. He fights every legal pronouncement, every legal decision. What has happened with Steve Bannon now, please, Kim?
Steve Bannon, who had collected, more than $15 million from people who were contributing because they just really wanted to help build that wall between the United States and Mexico.
Well, they said that 100% of those proceeds that they raised to build that wall privately would go to building that wall.
100%
Turns out
of those proceeds went straight into Bannon's pocket.
Yeah, none of the proceeds went to building the wall. But, anyway, what's happened with that case?
So today,
he was prosecuted. Yeah.
Bannon pled guilty to defrauding supporters of President Donald Trump. This is a New York state case. He was sentenced to 3 years of conditional discharge after he pleaded guilty, which means he won't be serving any jail time for that taking of the 15 mil. Wow. It was all part of a plea deal. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of first-degree scheme to defraud. He was originally charged with 6 criminal counts of money laundering. The plea deal coming 3 weeks before the scheduled start of the trial in the case. I don't know where the money went or if he has to give it back. But yeah, despite his vow that not a penny would be pocketed by him or others, apparently he diverted hundreds of thousands of dollars to 2 associates and took away lots of that cash for himself.
Well, as it turns out, he's helped in that state case where he's now negotiated this, seems as though it's sort of a tepid punishment, some kind of, as Kim was telling it, I thought, I don't know what this is, some kind of probationary pro forma thing, right? And then, of course, he really got off the hook on the federal case because he was found guilty on that. And what happened? Trump pardoned him. So you end up with Steve Bannon having skated completely. Speaking of skating, as we get back to law and disorder, Mayor Adams telling his top commissioners, don't criticize Trump. Don't interfere with immigration enforcement. After weeks of confusing messaging around these ICE raids in New York, the mayor ordering his staff to stifle criticism of the feds, stifle criticism of the immigration policy, and that the mayor, he alone, Mayor Adams, will make sure that New York City doesn't lose funding. Because if you are critical, we're going to lose funding, is his point. This is an hour-long meeting. It was held in the late hours of Friday, and now it looks as though the decisions about what's going to happen with ICE agents hitting New York City will come from the mayor's office. But the thing that's happening at the same time with Mayor Adams is it looks as though Donald Trump and his Justice Department is recommending that charges be dropped. Prosecutors being told to drop charges against the mayor of New York. I don't know that that's a coincidence. Feels very cause and effect. But Mayor Adams may have found his new favorite person in Pam Bondi, who is connected to Donald Trump, as you are no doubt aware. And Mayor Adams may indeed skate on everything. It is more than a little bit of a maneuver that this new administration, only 3 weeks into this new regime, they're aggressive, right? That whole thing, flood the zone. I played you a couple of times. I'll play it for you at some point again. The Bannon cut about this is our plan. The media is our enemy. We're going to flood the zone. There's just going to be so much stuff that comes at them. There'll be no way they can cover it. And indeed, they're executing on that. These are skilled professionals when it comes to dismantling government and it comes to seizing power. That's what's happened here. So in the void, you can seize more power, of course, and we're seeing evidence of that now in a huge, huge way. But following the, in my judgment, completely illegal invasion of the Treasury Department and other departments in government by Elon Musk and his deputized teenagers, or I guess they're 19 to 26 years old. And you may see that as a cheap shot, by the way, but I don't think that that's incidental. I think that people who have no experience in government, they have no history really in governmental affairs or administration of this sort, who understand anything about how the United States works. I get it. They invented an app, or they excelled at some video game, or they hacked into some system and they showed their virtuosity by doing that. So great. That got them into the SEAL Team 6 of Elon Musk's world that is now moving into government. But that doesn't really qualify them in any way, especially when you consider the fact that they weren't checked. Their background checks are all empty on all of these people, including Musk for that matter. So he's now enlisted them, is my point, to move in illegally into all of these various systems. Everything from USAID, but the Treasury invasion was really quite extraordinary. So now a judge has said, you got to stop this. What you're doing on the freezing of funds and also some of these other fronts, it's illegal. So there's been more than one judge that's weighed in response to attorneys general in all of those states that sued. So that's what's happening legally. Now a judge is, you have a video, let's watch a little bit of this. And then there's I think she talks to a judge in this clip, which is why we liked it.
And Vance and their allies in Congress over the weekend, it was clear that they were laying the groundwork to openly defy court orders. And today, a judge said they already have. Today, a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration
Stop 1 second, if you would, for me, Tony, because she does mention something, and that is a post by J.D. Vance, who says essentially that a judge, you might have the actual quote, Kim, but a judge doesn't have the right, essentially doesn't have the authority to override the authority that comes with President Trump's authority, so that a district judge shouldn't be involved in an overriding an executive order or anything that comes out of the executive branch. Of course, that is exactly the way the government is set up. I mean, it is a system of laws such that judges can intercede and do what the judge did. But that's what she's responding to, is the J.D. Vance post.
Has been violating a previous court order to lift the blanket spending freeze on federal grant programs. To put it plainly, the Trump administration froze spending. A judge told them to unfreeze it. And according to this judge, they didn't. And that kind of puts us in uncharted territory. In fact, some Democrats and legal experts say it leaves us smack dab in the middle of what they're calling a constitutional crisis. And look, I know phrases like that can sometimes sound vague and abstract and academic. But as I said, this country relies on a system of checks and balances between three co-equal branches of government for good reason. So when the Trump administration ignores that principle, when it defies the judiciary and dares the courts to enforce their orders, it is threatening the Constitution itself, hence a constitutional crisis. Starting us off tonight is retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. After retiring from the federal bench, she became a professor at Harvard Law School. Judge Gertner, thank you so much for taking the time. You're the perfect person to help us make sense of what is happening here. So let me just start with what we saw today, because for the first time, we saw a federal judge accuse the Trump administration of defying a court order. And the judge said the White House has not complied with an order to release federal funding that it had frozen. I just want to pause on that because it feels to me, I'm not a lawyer, I'm certainly not a judge, feels very significant to me. But you were a federal judge. What do you think?
I think it is significant, but your introduction was suggesting that there's something very academic about it, and it's really very, very straightforward here. Trump had a lawful way to do all of this. Yeah, he had a lawful way to do all of this. He has the Congress. There are steps that one can follow. There are rules to be followed, and all he did is completely ignore that and ignored his own Congress, which is really something that should give all of us pause, and issued these executive orders, which Dahlia Lithwick describes as like letters to Santa. They were badly drafted, and half the time, he didn't have the authority to do it. When a federal judge issues an order, the federal judge is making a determination for a preliminary order that there's a likelihood of success on the merits, so it has to be a strong case. Judges don't do this out of the air. And furthermore, that there has to be irreparable harm. And the notion that judges across the country have done this really should give this government pause, that they have done what they've done is not just mildly illegal, but very, very illegal. And judges have recognized that. To your point about this comment about, how federal judges have no business dealing with legitimate executive actions, as you said, legitimate is the point here. What they are doing isn't even close to legitimate.
Yeah,
will they defy it?
That's the question. I mean, first of all, it is literally their job. This is
okay.
Yeah.
I've seen enough. I did want to just put a specific on one of the things that the judge said there, and that is that if, for example, Donald Trump wants to get rid of USAID, okay, there's so many ways to get rid of USAID, but none of them are, I want to get rid of USAID and I've instructed Elon Musk to go in there and fire everybody. You can go to Congress. You can say, I want to get rid of USAID. I want to get rid of the Department of Education. I want to get rid of, et cetera, fill in the blank. And Congress, which is now in your grasp, apparently, they can get rid of it. They can vote on it. That's the way things are done. Or, as I told you last week, you can sap these agencies of money. There are ways to take money away. That's what's going to happen at the EPA. If they don't get rid of it, they're just going to so hobble it that it won't be able to function because it won't have any money. That's what's going to happen across the board on these regulatory agencies that they can't quite get through or eliminate completely. In the short term, they will take money away from them. These are the ways the government works. But they're going after the more aggressive blitz policy. They are blitzing the government with Musk, his henchmen, and Trump. Trump's really the front man for what is a takeover and a seizing of power by Musk and many of those who work with Musk. And in the comments that Trump had about Musk with Brett Baer, you know, he did that sit-down interview with Brett Baer, ran during the Super Bowl, I guess.
Pre-Super Bowl, yeah.
He was asked, actually, how does it work with Musk? Does he communicate with you and then you tell him, you know, each day what you want? Or Baer asked a version of that question. We're going to play it for you right now. But listen to how Trump never answers the question. And the reason that's important is Trump has nothing to do with the actual specifics and details of what's happening in government right now, what's being done with Musk. Musk is his deputy. Musk has been deputized and has subsequently deputized others. You know, the handful, it started as a handful of people who came out of Musk's world of SpaceX and Tesla, et cetera, who were helping him, who jumped on government computers. Now that group of people helping Musk has grown. But listen as Trump never really answers the question because he doesn't know the answer to how it works with Musk. It's basically turn Musk loose and he does the rest. Go ahead, Tony, please.
But how does it work with Elon day to day? Does he come in and say, this is what I'm working on? Does he say, here's what we're doing?
First of all, he's a great guy. He was never really a supporter or not a supporter. He was a, you know, sort of semi-neutral kind of a guy, not a political person, very smart, brilliant person, and which I like. I'm a big believer in IQ points. I mean, it's a good thing. And I've gotten to know him a little bit over the last couple of years. During the campaign, he liked what I said. He went to Pennsylvania. He actually campaigned right after the rocket ship went up, where he caught it coming down, which nobody saw before. He then took off. He went to Pennsylvania. He actually campaigned for me and did a very good job. I won Pennsylvania by a lot. I won everything by a lot. But Elon, I'd say, go in here because USAID, I heard very bad things about for years. I mean, you did too. I mean, I'm sure you did too. It's a scam. It's a fraud, a lot of it, most of it. But it's a fraud. Look at the jobs that they produce for people. I'm not even going to mention their name. It's too big a show to mention their name. It's almost unfair. But the whole thing is a giant fraud. And I think judges will have to do the right thing, really. Otherwise, you're going to have a whole big problem with the country. Now,
bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. And, you know, the people elected me on that. And we have a group of people that you just can't get. I mean, these are really brilliant. It's a group, I call it the group of 100. We literally started off with 14 or 15 young geniuses. Now we have 100 young geniuses. And what's happened, I'll probably get a lot from the show, people are calling up from all over the country wanting to do and wanting to help Elon. You know, they respect him and they respect me. They love what's happening with our country. But I campaigned on this, Brett.
Okay, so you see how he just shimmies and moves away. And again, there are no specifics attached to it. He's a front man. He's a salesman. That's what he does. He's a brilliant salesman. And, you know, he says enough that people spark to him. But just on the substance, don't lose track of one thing. I don't see what's in it for Elon. You don't? You don't? Everything's in it for Musk. Yep. Everything. I'll start with the specifics on his businesses. SpaceX is being fined right now. SpaceX is being hassled by the EPA, first of all. Also by USAID and the investigation from the Inspector General there as to what was happening with Starlink and Ukraine being cut off from Starlink during a critical confrontation with Russia. That's just on the substance of those 2 points. Elon is being sued by the IRS. There are tons of, I shouldn't say tons more, I can think of 3 more regulatory violations that
the SEC is not too happy with him either.
Thank you. Yeah. the FAA, as you know, was fining him because a lot of his rockets don't go, they go off course and he has to blow them up, and then other aviation concerns have to work around them, right? Well, the FAA fines for that. When he got into power, he was browbeating the FAA chief and actually had him removed. I mean, the guy resigned, but it was under pressure, right? So when we say, what is in it for Elon? There's a lot, but I've left out the biggest thing. The reason clearly that Musk wants all this, because he doesn't really, on some level, care about the fines. I mean, he can pay those fines. They're almost like a rounding error to him. It's power. Elon Musk has immense power right now over the most powerful country on earth. You don't think that's seductive? You don't think that's everything from an aphrodisiac to the thing you get drunk on every day as you wake up? He is loving it right now. And it also gives him leverage with other nations. The world is a different place now with Musk and Trump wielding power. And you've seen that they enjoy effing with everybody. I mean, Trump's got this thing where he just wants to get up and start a trade war just so he can. He wants to acquire Gaza. He wants to change the name for the Gulf of Mexico, and has. I mean, these are, some of it is lunacy, but all of it is power. That's what's going on. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
I have a guest waiting, so I cut it short, but we'll double back to some more Law and Disorder as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
They are the largest online news network in the world. They have done something that I'm sure in the early days people were saying, what are you guys doing? You're wasting your time with this TYT. I remember doing TYT as a, fill-in host. I think, they had at that time 3 people. It was Jank, I think Ben Mankiewicz, and they had, we'll bring on Jayar and he'll tell us, but, and I remember it was in like this half-vacant building, like in the mid-Wilshire district of Los Angeles, next to a McDonald's. You park on the McDonald's and you'd, scoot over to, all these empty offices. It looked like a bombed-out building. And then there was TYT. They were just kind of in their growth period. And it's just extremely exciting to see what's happened and how the media landscape has changed and how there are really now a bunch of TYTs coming up, independent media. This show will be a really tiny example of one. But a guy who's been there, I should say, from the very beginning, a guy who's been at TYT since it all started is our guest now. How about it for Jayar Jackson, everybody?
What's going on, Mark?
Nice
Thompson.
to see you.
How you doing, brother?
It's great to see you, man. Everything's good here. I mean, this is, we are witnessing history, and it's bad history. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot to get to. But before I get to all of that, take me through the TYT beats just quickly. It is true what I was saying that, in the beginning, it was just, it felt cobbled together. You had like a handful of dedicated people, yourself among them. Mm-hmm. And then this space in mid-Wilshire, Los Angeles. And it was Jank, it was Ben, it was, there was a woman on the show at that time.
You almost got it. Yeah, I trust you, Mark. I trust you. Jill Pike.
Jill Pike, that's it, right.
Jill Pike. And Jesus Godoy.
Of course, Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus and I were both, he came in a little bit before I did. We were like the behind the other side of the window guys. We would play random sounds of Jank.
And Dave Kohler was there too. Kohler. Yeah,
absolutely. So that was like the original crew in a way. I was the last of the original crew, of course. Also Michael Schur. I didn't know he had known them that well until like months or ever so later when I first met him. And also Dave wasn't specifically there when I started. He was off in Bolivia or Belgium. I can't remember where he went.
Right, some Spanish-speaking nation as I recall.
Yeah, so it must have been Bolivia. Yeah. I don't know, man. I live in America. I'm in this country where we don't know anything about the rest of the world.
Right. Well, we're so big and powerful, we don't need to. Yeah. But the growth has been remarkable at TYT. And then they've spun off shows, and they went through their period during which there was outside investment. Then they got rid of all those outside investors and kind of returned to their mission statement. And, Cenk is controversial. And, I mentioned TYT, and there are people who are TYT lovers, there are people who are TYT haters, and there are people who don't know TYT still. But I think they are truth tellers to the point that you can disagree. And I think even the TYTers, we don't all agree on stuff. I mean, when I go down there, I'm Cenk and I can go round and around on stuff,
Yeah, it's always kind of been that way, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an infamous moment with Cenk and Michael Schur, who I just mentioned, and it was about the Iraq War. So as far as the I'm aging how old we all are, but it was around 2002, 2003, when all that came together, and Cenk was screaming about this USA Today article that said, Bush says something is safer, and I can't remember the line right now, but Michael was this calm Michael Schur as he always is. And he's like, well, Cenk, it's what it was said. It was like very slow and subdued, and Cenk is losing his mind.
Yeah, well, that's Cenk's coin of the realm, and without angry Cenk going off. I mean, it's just it's kind of what he does. But yeah, I can say that I've never been asked to comment or don't say this or don't comment on that ever. And so I always, when I hear people say they wouldn't let me say this, wouldn't let me say that, I think that because there's a lot of kind of rap battle noise between shows, I find, and TYT is sort of toward the top. And so they take a lot of incoming fire. I think they always fire at those who have, who've done well. And I think that it's just total BS. I know it's BS. They don't ask you to avoid saying anything at all.
Yeah, I mean, and there'll be disagreements. I mean, all the way up until today, these, not today specifically, but these days, there's plenty of disagreements on the approach of the Democratic Party and how things are supposed to go, and establishment versus progressives and ultra progressives versus, whoever else these labels are that I don't really keep up with. I still can't tell you the difference specifically between a liberal and a progressive. I'd like to exchange those words and those terms all the time. So I was like, wait, a leftist or progressive, or is it a liberal? I don't know, but maybe I've angered folks by misinterpreting the correct level of progressive or Democrat or leftist or leftist.
Well, we've weaponized some of those terms. Like when you say leftist, it means something different to me than, well, my mom is on the left. You know what I mean? Like, but she's not a leftist, because leftist sounds radical.
It totally does, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Sounds Antifa-like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. But I think that's important, because the labeling and the weaponization of labels is something that is being done very effectively, I think, by the 100%. Right. They talk about the woke left, so they'll take a term and they'll add another term to it, and now that hyphenate is really damaging in a conversation or argument.
Yeah, it's as simple as even calling folks a Democrat Party. And then, no lie, this was what the thought is, make sure you press the rat part, so that in people's heads they think Democrats are rats. God. So they won't say Democratic leader, it's like the Democrat leader, and they push rat. No lie, it's the way it's supposed to change people's energy. And look at where we are today. Look, many conservatives or Republicans may complain about Donald Trump and his rhetoric and the things he says, but they still support him. Again, many, not all, but they'll hear terms. I mean, he started his entire political career talking about other folks and calling them names and making a generalization about who they are and what they're about. So that wasn't brand new. He just used it to a higher degree and consistently and nonstop, and took off the veil. Like, there was always dog whistles. He doesn't know what a dog whistle is. He just whistles, bro. He just throws it out there. So it's always kind of been there. He just exploited it for the full real energy is behind a division and hatred for the other that we kind of built this country on. Let's keep it real. I mean, people don't like to hear that.
Katie Lynch says, I loved it when TYT sent reporters to Trump rallies and asked why attendees liked Trump. They always, quote, liked his policies, but could never specify one. It was an extraordinary phenomenon, and that's why I think you've seen something that can be reduced to a cult of personality. I mean, I think that is what you're seeing. I believe that Trump is a once-in-a-generation political figure. We can call him vacuous, which I do. We can call him, playing the theater of being president, which I do. But I also see the way he effectively communicates the things that he knows will dominate the news cycle and win over support. He is, from that standpoint, he is genius. And again, I'm sorry. Whenever I say anything nice about Trump, people jump on me. But I
don't see that as nice.
Yeah, I mean,
honestly, I've said it this way. When there was the debate over whether or not Elon Musk is throwing out Nazi salutes and all that stuff, I made sure that I pointed out, and also when General John Kelly called Donald Trump a fascist, along with I believe 2 other generals. I was like, well, you don't have to be mad at me for repeating what someone else said explicitly. Someone who agrees with him, maybe politically on many points. They're just talking about his character and who he is. So when you call Donald Trump a genius for using that same kind of energy of division and wordplay and anger, let's keep it real, to get people on his side, as you talked about the cult of personality, it doesn't matter anymore what he's saying. It just matters that he's saying it, because now they have a collective a togetherness of having an opposition to this group or this group of people or multiple groups of people that aren't them. So when you call him genius for using that, sure, it's genius, but it's not positive. There's evil geniuses. I wouldn't call them that. But so people can take the term whichever way they want, positive or negatively. But for someone to exploit, I guess, our original sin of division and hatred and push for the other and weaponize it to then get enough people who agree with that same hatred and abuse and dismissal and division of the other, I mean, I guess it's genius, but it doesn't mean that it's good. So I don't mind that you call him a genius. It's just that the folks that follow him don't see. I was watching that last clip you were just playing when he was talking to Brett Baer. I used to sell cars. By the way, during the time I still started with TYT, this is after college. Sold cars for about a month. Board Ford in Whittier, California. And
I know I'm laughing. It's perfectly legitimate work. I guess I just didn't see you in a showroom.
No,
originally.
It wasn't legitimate work. I got screamed at for letting a guy leave. Yeah. So it was the worst job. So you hear a used car salesman every time he speaks. It's so easy to tell when someone's dodging the question and then just rambling. He has no specifics in anything that he says. So the one thing I generally disagree with people on is when they say, he knows how to convince people of his point or getting across. No, he doesn't. He just keeps talking until you forgot what he was supposed to be talking about. He avoided the question blatantly. And then no one comes back and says, so Mr. President, the question actually was, why do you trust Elon Musk? It wasn't, Elon Musk is going to go clean up the Department of Education next. Then he's going to the Department of Defense. It's, well, considering Elon Musk's actual background that you refuse to talk about, why do you trust him? What motivation does he have to take all this money and then give it to who? What systems are in place? I was just talking about this yesterday with John Iadarola. What systems are in place that have you guys believing that after he saves these billions and trillions of dollars, that they're somehow coming back to you? How are you benefiting from all this money that he claims he just found is caught up in all this corruption? You know how one way he could probably deliver that money back to you is through tax cuts for people that aren't ultra wealthy, which they're about to do, or maybe through these things that we call in America government programs, entitlements. The things that they're cutting. The very things they're taking out. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
And that interview to which you referred, the Bear thing, was just a back rub. I mean, that was just like a human mic stand interview. But you're right. Even the tepid questions he couldn't answer. Chris Johnson says, no, genius is not difficult to con ignorance. Well, I get it. Maybe genius overstates it. But he's definitely locked into the American psyche. And he locked into the American psyche across the board. That wasn't just a third of America that voted for him. Mm-hmm. It was something of a plurality. I mean, and you had minority groups that you would think, directly negatively affected by so much Trump policy, like the Latinos, and they came out and voted for him.
You know why? Like he crossed multiple levels. The one thing is division and also the fear of the other. The other can be LGBTQ plus. It can be Black folks. It can be Latinos. It can be Asians. It can be women. It can be the disabled. He's crossed that line also after that horrific DC airplane crash, because now he's blaming the disabled for the opening up of programs. I had a friend who posted about the DEI slur that they've turned it into now. But if you force people, or if they actually say the full words, or actually what the acronym stands for, they'd have to explicitly say, I'm against diversity. I'm against inclusion, and equity. I'm against all these things. So then the next question has to be, Why are you against inclusion? Who are you trying to exclude in the United States of America while you talk about unity? Why are you against diversity? Which diverse group of people do you think aren't worth it? You eventually have to promote your supremacy, your issues with your superiority complex with the rest of us, and that's not always sound very good.
The pushback on that, of course, is this: it's not that I don't welcome. I mean, they wouldn't say this because he's really about, I'm only recognizing two sexes and I'm only recognizing, I mean, they are gone aggressively against any kind of, shall we say, agenda or priorities associated with the LGBTQ plus community or, with minority rights, et cetera. But the academic argument is, it's not that I don't feel that those people deserve a place at the table. I just don't feel that all our policies should be hijacked by those values. And now you're in a wrestling match academically about how big a priority these issues should be. But what they found was, don't get into the wrestling match, just state it. This woman, Kamala Harris, wants your tax dollars to pay for these trans operations for illegal immigrants who are now in prison. That 1 30-second spot was a wrecking ball, didn't you think?
Because that, and again, that's how it crosses over multiple people. So sure, there's black folks that'll be like, oh my God, trans rights. There's Asian folks, there's Latino folks. They're like, oh my God, trans rights. And then if folks maybe who are okay with that, then the next attack is on Latinos. Can you believe what they're doing to our country? They're taking our jobs and they're just, they're living high off the hog. Again, none of it has to be true, just as long as it triggers something in whatever person it appeals to. So it gives also the cover of, this isn't white supremacy, because obviously it's not just white folks who agree with it. Well, you're not only attacking racial minorities, you're attacking other folks that racial minorities, some segments of those populations, also dislike. Of course, there's issues within the black community. There are many folks who have issues with LGBTQ plus community, even though plenty of black folks fall within that community. I mean, it's the basis for a lot of times, the upbringing of Baptist Christianity within the black community, because it was preached in our churches. I grew up in one of them, where, oh my God, there's a fear for gay folks. And oh my God, it's gone further. Now they're not just gay, they're also lesbian. And then after that, oh my God, you hear this thing called trans? So it's an added layer every time of this browbeating of how afraid you must be. And of course, there's black folks that have money and then they want to protect their money. Yes, there's black CEOs. Yes, there's Asian CEOs. And no matter if they've been attacked from the COVID thing that Trump did a drumbeat on every time, you know what? He had people afraid of Asian folks because they must carry the virus differently than other folks. There's so many layers to how it was stacked.
We become this, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is layers, as you say. We become this populist that sort of reminds me of what they talked about for years in the Iranian street when it came to the despotism that informed Iranian politics. They had the Shah, and then they had the fall of the Shah, and then you had these religious mullahs take over, et cetera. But the street never changed. And I remember reading so much about Iran, how they're filled with conspiracy theories, and they're generally ignorant. They work against actually educating that public. They want them in the is it the madrasas, or what they call the religious schools?
Right?
Yeah. And you see, I think more and more of that in this country. And the reason that everything that we're talking about now is important is because there is a need to communicate to a public that is informed by a lot of these different characteristics that we're talking about. I mean, they jumped on DEI and they waved that flag and everybody rallied against it. I mean, it's amazing how that is washing down so positively with the American people. But it wasn't just that. Look at CC Ryder says, I'm ex-GOP. I saw the Trump normalization during 2015 on many, many Christian TV shows. She's talking about the normalization of Trump. Same for 2024, she says. And then Joe Rogan, MAGA, Chris Cuomo, Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary, all sell Trump to the base. There was more of a normalization of Trump this time around, JR, than I think in 2015. Do you agree?
It did. It definitely was. So the folks who separated from the party, who are still conservatives but didn't like his approach. By the way, it was all of them at first. It really showed what political power does. I mean, principles. They have them at first, but their principles are based on whether or not they think they can win. So at first they went, "Oh my God, this guy's going crazy. He's saying all this crazy stuff that, man, I believe in some of it, but we can't say that or else we'll lose." Then he won the primary, and they went, "Wait a second. Maybe he is onto something. Maybe this works." It's not a matter of whether or not it's principle based. It's just that it works. It worked. He won. After he lost in 2020, and then his mob descended upon the Capitol, they were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Look at the day on January 6th in the halls of Congress, in the Senate and the House. Republicans were making speeches about how Donald Trump needs to make sure he owns up to this and tells his people to go back home. They came to kill us. But before the end of the week, they were on his side because they were, wait a second, that didn't stick. People are mad at me for saying that Donald Trump was a part of this whole thing. So they went right back to following him. And then, and you have your, it's like a coaching tree. You're a sportsman, Mark. So the coaching tree that starts with the legendary coach, and then he has assistant coaches under him. They learn the process, or maybe they have their own elements that they add to it. Then they get head coaching jobs, and it spreads out and it spreads out and it spreads out. Next thing you know, the guy who started the whole thing is the messiah of it, and the rest of these guys are innovators of the next stages of it. So he's had his coaching tree come out and spread the same news to more and more people. So even though everything he says, they say it as well, because they're thinking, this might benefit me too. I might get a job coaching the Packers, So it's a similar energy.
It became a cottage industry. That's a great point, that the sort of smaller MAGAlettes went out there with all the MAGA messages in all of these smaller forms. And now with independent media having risen to the power that it has, you have all of these different platforms where you essentially can espouse the MAGA message, and it's unfettered, and you can continue to populate your timeline with a lot of that. And not to mention the dominance of mainstream media, Fox News Channel, really, with that message. And those are voters. Those are the old-time senior white voters primarily, but those are the ones. So now we get to where we are. I mean, that's how we got here. And the messaging is important because it continues to be employed. I mean, that's the reason it's so very important. And the last thing I'll just say, because what you touched on is so important, and that was the transformation will be the word I would use, from those who said Donald Trump has to own what happened on January 6th. He was the catalyst. He was the reason it happened. He's got to own it before we move on. And then, as you say, they realized that that wasn't sticking. They were paying a political price for that, and so they all came back around. Cut to everybody getting on board. The election was stolen, right? The big lie, etc. They all got their talking points. Then this election, Trump wins, and he, sure enough, goes on this revenge tour, and he's after everybody. And the rehiring of people, or the hiring of people at the highest levels of the Justice Department and the FBI, will depend on a questionnaire and answers to a questionnaire about January 6th. Was it an FBI plot, January 6th? Was it the election of 2020 legitimate, or did Trump actually win? These are questions that federal employee candidates will have to answer in the affirmative. That is to say, Trump was always he won the election. Trump was indeed the elected president, and J6 was actually an FBI plot to ensnare MAGA loyalists. Those things all have to be answered by candidates in the right way. Otherwise, they don't get the job at the FBI or the Justice Department. 100%. It's extraordinary.
Yep. And then they have to follow it up with how they then behave once they're there. I was saying this right after the election. I mean, building up to it, as I was doing videos, I also do the watch list. So all the points are carried by video evidence and proof of the people saying it. So you don't have to listen to me. I just carry it and get you guys to the next point. But the whole thing that happened in the buildup, I was like, we're trying to convince enough people to understand what our reality is in front of us, because it's a blatant lie every time. We've seen him break records for the number of lies that he tells. So in build up to election, you're trying to get people to understand it so they can vote a certain way and maybe get rid of the guy who's looking to steal all your money under the guise of populism. Once the election's over, what are we convincing anyone of anymore? It's already happened. If I convince all the MAGA voters that they were wrong, what difference does that make now? It's no longer November, bro. It is February. So now it's just a matter of a battle for our collective reality. Every day, there is another shot at what reality is. So, again, I referenced that DC airplane crash. Suddenly, he immediately comes out talking about whose fault it was. How much do we hear from conservatives every time something happens that is implicated, or it shows that it's maybe a conservative figure or maybe someone inspired by conservative beliefs, and they go, whoa, let's calm down now. I think we need to wait for the facts to come out before we make all these assumptions. Nobody said that when Donald Trump came out and made a bunch of assumptions that within 5 minutes were obviously disputed and proven to be lies. It had nothing to do with DEI. None of it. Absolutely none of it. And by the way, the things that he was upset about with the FAA happened under his first presidency. So he can't answer any of those questions. But the whole idea was to come out, recreate the reality for everyone else so that they don't accidentally fall into a reality that's not beneficial to him. So every day, we're not looking to convince you to change your mind on Donald Trump and not vote for him. That's too late. You just need to understand what's right in front of your face. And, I don't know how well that's going.
The JR is the best part of TYT, says Jennifer B. Oh, you've got fans, yeah.
Oh, I love Jennifer
well,
B.
I would ask you about this, JR. The Champagne Wishes says you need to blame the tech bros. I don't know about blaming the tech bros, but I do have a question about the tech bros. Mm-hmm. They all jumped on the Trump train pretty early, I'm going to say a couple of years into the 4-year Biden run, maybe 2.5 years in, you saw people like David Sachs jump on, those guys who do the All In podcast. I've known them for years. I used to play cards with them. I had no idea that they were these kinds of, that they wouldn't speak truth to power. It was remarkable to me. And I see it as self-enrichment. Is that too shallow a way to look at it? I mean, it seems to me that they have a lot to gain just from a self-enrichment standpoint by playing with. Yeah.
Yo, listen, everyone talks about how much we love capitalism. There's a level of capitalism. There's unfettered capitalism, and there's completely unregulated capitalism where people can then start taking advantage of other humans, and we cross over into humanitarian issues or not caring about other people's lives for the sake of getting that extra dollar. Look, we talked about that, not we, you and I, but everyone was talking about that United Healthcare CEO. And his objective is to make money. So is that company. So people dying? Who cares? Who cares? I'm trying to make money. That's capitalism. So the same way capitalism forces people like him to not care about anything but putting in policies that make sure they make more money, and who cares about other people's lives and their health and their doctor visits. The same way people think politics is a way for me to benefit in this capitalistic society, and nobody's regulating it. No one cares how much I change my mind or what principles I claim to have at first. Look at Zuckerberg. Came straight out as soon as the election was over, talking about how he's completely changing the way that the platform sees truth, the way that they see fact checking. We're going to pull back on the fact checking because now the guy who doesn't deal in facts is in power. And if he's in power and he's targeting me, I can't make more money. It's all based on making more money. They say it blatantly. They just don't say it directly. They just say it with one level back. We're going to change it because that's not a good business model. A business model is money making. So yeah, the tech bros jumping on, they start seeing it as, so and it's always been that way before Trump. Politicians that'll come and appeal to business leaders are basically telling them, if you fund my campaign or help benefit me in some kind of way, I'm going to help benefit you. And the only thing business leaders care about benefiting themselves with is making money.
That is just perfectly described, because there is a quid pro quo, and we saw, I'll just use David Sachs again as an example. I mean, he's big. He's a PayPal founder, for those who don't know, et cetera. He did Yammer too, but he's a very smart guy, and he's been an innovator in the tech space as a tech entrepreneur, as a venture cap kind of guy. But he was against crypto. He thought crypto was a scam. Now he's in the government, head of crypto. I mean, it's crazy. But that's how completely transactional the whole thing is. And then you mentioned Zuckerberg. To me, it was comical. I mean, you get rid of the fact checkers, as you say, because you've got this guy who doesn't like to be fact checked and doesn't want anything on any of his posts or any of his remarks to be fact checked, gone through any fact check filter in Trump. So he gets rid of that. And then he goes on Rogan with this kind of makeover that he's done on himself and says that we need a little more masculine energy. Since the whole election was full of masculine energy, even the women who are part of Trump's world are, they're gun-toting, ass-kicking women. It's that Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of brand, Kristi Noem, who runs now DHS, she has that brand. So you saw that change with Zuckerberg.
Wait, Zuckerberg went on talking about manliness? I missed this. Did he really? Are you messing with me, bro?
No, are you serious? You didn't see it?
I
Was
did
on
not
Joe Rogan.
see Zuckerberg talking about being manly. No, I did not.
He said America could use a little more masculinity and kind of a masculine forward kind of policy.
I generally try to avoid the conversations about who's
Tony will try to. Tony might be able to find it for you in a hurry. But yeah, it's a. It was extraordinary to me because, as you say, it was so clearly transactional. But. Tell me about the watch list, Jayar Jackson.
Watch list a little bit more. Yeah, daily we post 2 to 3 videos a day. We'll do breakdowns, 8 minutes, sometimes 7, sometimes 12. I just posted one, or I just sent it over to our guys to post that took on all this stuff that's the constant lately since the election. It's been trying to react to some of the stuff that's happening with these executive orders and this declaration and that, seeing which ones actually make sense as far as what we need to pay attention to versus the ones where he's just trying to condition the community and society to accept whatever else is that they may be doing. So it's every day it's video based, because when I first came in with the Young Turks, I kind of settled into being that guy who finds those moments that we refer back to because we witnessed it and people tend to forget it. Again, this is W. Bush administration days, to reference the things that they said and did. And maybe people aren't always throwing the video back in their face. Again, there's technology had changed. We're on the internet now, back in 2005. And so since that was like my lane, that was always something that I did. So I produce and write and shoot these videos where I'll tell the story, but you don't have to just listen and believe me. You're not going to see my floating head behind, those TikTok videos.
Yeah, I do. I know that.
The script is behind, not the script, but this news story they're talking about, and you're like, look at this.
Yeah, that's wild.
So I just run it with the videos.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It does play to your strength, which is you just find stuff, which is why I'm amazed you couldn't find the Zuckerberg, the Zuckerberg thing. You got to go.
I'm so
find
disappointed
that.
in myself.
Oh my God, it's so it's
I'll
so
find
clear.
it after this.
Let me just hit a couple of comments before we say goodbye to JR. Having Jayar Jackson and Mark Thompson together today is like having my coffee with a croissant. Wow. Citizen Morgan, thank you for that. Shonda says Curtis Yarvin, look into him. It's who J.D. Vance is a lot to is who J.D. Vance has a lot to do with. Here's what's happening. He is associated with Dark Enlightenment and neo-reactionary movement, which critiques. I know all about Curtis Yarvin. Curtis Yarvin is a monarchist. Curtis Yarvin is a guy who believes that America should have a CEO. Okay, and that. Monarchism is what's feeding into a lot of the Project 2025 power, and also those who are around Trump are big devotees of Curtis Yarvin, including Musk. Well, you might imagine. I mean, he's the most powerful CEO on earth, so he loves an idea that comes out of it. We need a CEO. Yarvin's thing is, JR, I know you know this, but just to everybody, Yarvin's thing is, hey, if you look at Apple, when they want to put together an iPhone, they get their design people together, they get their technical people together, they get the engineers together, they say, we want an iPhone and we want a prototype by June, blah, 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 and they have it. 18 months later, you actually have a phone in your hand. If you were to ask the government to build an iPhone, 18 months later, you'd be having another committee to talk about the design decisions that still needed to be made, and there'd be a waste of money, et cetera. Yeah, but we're not building iPhones with the U.S. government. We're handling nuanced, complex issues that affect people worldwide. And this is the problem with the tech bros. We've seen them do it already. Musk comes in and just wants to decapitate the government. You can't do that. There are too many sensitive programs. We've seen it. regulatory agencies from the USDA, the FAA, the Food and Drug Administration, the NIH, and CDC critical with an emerging pandemic, arguably, with the next bird flu beginning to actually transfer species. I mean, this is an odd time to decapitate government. So I get it. Government can be overblown, and government can be lumbering. But the idea somehow that you need a CEO like a Elon Musk type, that's Yarvin's basic vibe. And I just think you're seeing already how it's an awful idea.
Yeah, and we've been taught since birth that the American dream is to be the richest person ever. That's the only objective. And now everyone doesn't buy into it, but that's the strong energy that's pushed on us. So of course, people who have that, we don't care how they got there. We just go, look, he got there. He must be. We make assumptions about who they are and how they got there, and their genius to get to that point. And many of them use
in a sense, we're royalists, aren't we? It's just that it's money that we consider the royalty. That's so true. Ryan says this, with a $20 euro. Isn't that a euro? Yeah. Question, doesn't POTUS have latitude over discretionary spending and how those monies are spent, since the heads of those agencies have discretion and he appointed them? Well, it depends what agency you're talking about, but generally speaking, POTUS doesn't have latitude. It depends what you also are talking about discretionary spending. But when a program is funded, it's funded by Congress, and that's a formal appropriations process. That money has to be spent by that agency. And POTUS can't come in and go, I want to divert some of the money. I don't want you to spend as much money on immigrants. I want you to spend more money on the border and not immigrants who are in this country already, et cetera. You can't, he doesn't have, in this case, it's a he, POTUS doesn't have that power, no.
It's taking powers from Congress.
Yeah, but so are you in any way encouraged? I mean, the courts have stepped in, but basically this crew that says, F you, we'll do what we want. We know what the people want, and we'll continue to do it. I mean, they are already in violation of a court order, as we were saying. Are you at all optimistic about how we can come out of this, how the people might be able to push back, or is it going to be a dark time for a while?
I think, I mean, especially since we're seeing which lines they're willing to cross. You know, he tests. And then once he tests, then he's like, well, okay, we'll go ahead and push. And he's crossed many. So as of now that we've gotten, I mean, it was the easiest line to cross is Congress, because those folks are, again, as I was pointing out, they kowtowed to him because they're like, this is power. You know, I need to be near it. So they folded immediately and gave up their powers. If we start crossing the judicial branch, which of course he's already gone after, and he feels he's appointed loyalists enough in that aspect to get anything that he wants, that's when we'll find out exactly if other countries, you know, we see France, we see people bust out into protests and riots, and they work. And whenever protests or riots happen here, it's, you know, it's considered completely like negative. Nothing about, even though this country's based off of a bunch of people protesting and rioting and fighting for independence, right? Even though they didn't give it to everybody. But still, that's the basis. That's what we like to brag about. But I think until we've gotten to the point where enough people are affected by it, because how big is this country? Enough people are affected by it, then we may see that energy. I think that's kind of the only way left. However else this guy can be stopped, it's going to have to be either some folks that he's unexpectedly didn't think would stop him, which happened his first term. That's why he was so frustrated by it. So whoever is left that could stop him has to be some what he thought were like-minded people. Maybe people with the on the Supreme Court, maybe folks in other levels of judiciary, appointed people. There's Republicans that were appointed by Donald Trump himself, by Reagan, by Bush, who have stopped and blocked some of these moves that he's making. That's kind of the last rail. If we see that happen, and enough people then are affected by these cuts and this stealing of people's money and limitations of their taxes and all their rights, eventually it's going to be bad enough before then we get to that point. I think our last rail is that kind of fight, and that's when it is dark to me. Nobody wants to see a bunch of fighting, but the people in the ivory towers don't care. The moats and walls are being built right now.
Right.
I know it sounds really over the top, but listen.
No. But I mean, I think it's true that they're insulated on some level. It has to be a protest, a series of protests. The people's voice has to be heard. It's not being heard through their congressional representatives because, as you say, they've been cowed. Tony, one thing I wanted to play for JR before we say goodbye is that back and forth on CNN that was about the there you go, you've got it, because this is about sort of flipping the bird to the judiciary. Again, this is the J.D. Vance saying, you know, this judge is overstepped because Trump's authority should be taking the priority over the judge's authority. Go ahead, if you would, please, Tony.
But let me just understand where you stand. If a district court judge rules in a way that the president dislikes, should the president listen or should the president defy?
If a district court judge tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, he should absolutely defy it. There's a difference between broad policy decisions and discrete disputes between parties. That's the difference. If I want a policy decided, I'll take it to the Supreme Court.
What about checks and balances?
Well, Scott, you're
of a district court judge who elected them.
What I can't get with is you talk.
Yeah. So who elected them? That's the way we do it. It's not an elected position. It's an appointment. That's why your guy, Trump, that guy, Scott Jennings, comes out of the Bush administration. That's why your guy, Trump, has a lot of power, because he can appoint those judges. And so it may be a flaw, but it's a law. So that's the way it works. But it's interesting that they are now viewing the courts as sort of a situational advantage or impediment, depending on what they want.
And again, that was in the first term. He started hacking judges that didn't do or say what he wanted. So that was the first shot at him. And he tried to normalize it. And, you know, people pushed back. He had those, I think it was Chris Cuomo when he was on CNN. He had that back and forth with him about, I don't want to say the judge's name in case I have the wrong one, but it was a Latino judge. And he says, look at him. He's Latino. He didn't even say Latino because he doesn't have respect to it. He just said he's Mexican or something.
Yeah.
And
Hispanic,
why would he?
Yeah,
why would he not? And so that he normalized that, of course, he's Hispanic. So therefore, he's going to rule against me because I'm white. And it's all based in racial lines. But if someone says, yo, I think you're kind of coming after minorities and people that have been oppressed this whole time, they go, why are you always bringing up race? I'm only having the same conversation you're having, bro.
So the watch list you can pick up right here on YouTube if you are here on this platform, taking us in that way. And does it also exist on audio platforms?
Yeah, you'll listen. Watch list is on YouTube. It's on Facebook. It's on Snapchat. Apparently, it's doing pretty good on Snapchat as well. I don't venture to Snapchat much anymore, but it's doing well over there as well. Like, you know, for my own fun purposes. But I'm not sure if you know this, Mark Thompson. I talk politics all the time. It's depressing. It makes me tired. It makes me have a bleak outlook on the world. But you know what? I watched NBA every night. I checked out the Super Bowl too. You know what? I'd like to look at society and the fun things that happen. You know, Nate Robinson, former NBA player, was going to die because he had kidney issues. And some fan or someone, they donated him their kidney. And he posted that picture on Instagram. And it actually touched my heart, man.
That is a great story. And, you know, it's funny. Now that you mention it, I have to look at all the people who participate in our community here as potential organ donors for me. Yes, that's exactly right. When I need an organ, I have to look at the community. That's what I get from the Nate Robinson story. You get some heartwarming story, but I get how it could benefit Mark Thompson. That's what I get.
We're living in Donald Trump's world now.
Yeah, exactly.
So like stuff like that, I want to talk about more. So just really fast. Yeah. Also on YouTube is JR Rated. That's where I get to talk a little less about hardcore, depressing politics and some of the things that I think inspire me or just fun or an outlook on our society in general. Because there's so many things happening outside of it that I think tons of people would pay attention to, but also it may not always be as important or life-changing as what's happening in our political spectrum right now. So check me out also there, JR Rated.
JR Rating?
JR Rated. You know, they
Rated.
We started slapping that up there every time I was doing a video.
JR Rated. I like it.
Check it out on YouTube, you guys.
Watch list and JR Rated. Come back and see us. And JR is JAYAR for those who were just there. It is. Tony's got it up.
You guys can it. There's my little cartoon version of me.
Yeah. Very kind of studly cartoon version of you. I like it.
The artist gave me a serious chin.
Did you reject a couple of those artist conceptions and go make my chin bigger or anything like that?
Considering the artist was a fan of the show and did like 6 different versions for free, I had no complaints.
Well, it looks good. JR rated, and of course, the watch list. Love that you hung out a little bit with us today, and I look forward to.
Listen, Mark, I would love to do it like once a month, if not every couple of weeks, brother.
I love it. Now we put you in for a monthly. I love that. Thanks, Jayar Jackson.
Thanks, you guys. Good to see you, man.
Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Appreciate everybody being here. A quick update, because I think a lot of you do come here for David K. Johnston on Tuesdays, and David's going to be with us tomorrow, just to let you know. Okay, he had a scheduling conflict today. Loved having JR here, and I love what he does. I mean, he's like something beyond just a political pundit. Yeah, exactly. So much good from that. I'm just having some.
Good morning.
It's my Coachella Valley coffee, and it's so damn good. Kim will tell you that it's
I will tell you that it is Mark's favorite coffee that has ever passed his lips.
That's absolutely right. It's true.
CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
It is a boutique roastery. I say that in a good way because they care about every bean, and you may think that I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. Everything is hand roasted. They source all of their beans, all organic, and women-owned farms. They actually seed, meaning help fund a lot of those businesses, and then as those businesses grow, they buy coffee from those businesses, and it's across Africa and Latin America. They're just terrific. But again, the down-home, homemade quality is still there at Coachella Valley Coffee. So they're CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. It's not just coffee. They're teas. Kim loves the teas. Courtney loves the teas.
Okay.
Oh, they have a cold brew that's just great for the summertime. They've got a lot, again, coffee and tea with tasting notes on everything. Do check them out. And again, this is all fresh crop, okay? So it hasn't been lying around a factory warehouse for months, and then they can discount it when they sell it to you on the internet. This is all fresh crop. So I want you to know that. And when you go there, find I love that Ocotillo espresso. That's what Tony's looking at right now. Find what works for you, though. You know, I like bolder stuff that sort of it's a fuller coffee. They've got a morning brew that's really great. Anyway, find what you like, and then I want you to use the 10% discount, okay? So load up your cart and then mark T at checkout for 10% off anything, coffee, tea. If you want merch there, whatever they've got, you get 10% off of it. So don't be shy. They support the show, and I'd love for our show community to support them as well. I think most people do, but you will not be disappointed. They are terrific. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to grab some news from Kim. News and commentary. She does the news, a little commentary. The world is a complicated place, Kim. I don't need to tell you that. It's filled with stuff that's not just Trump, not just America. We're a fragile balancing act to this world, Kim. And this world is easily thrown off balance, Kim. Do you get that? Because what I'm getting is that a lot of people who are forging policy and opining on policy in this country, they don't get that. They don't. So where's that drop? You just don't get it.
You just don't get it, do you?
You don't, yeah.
You don't.
You don't. That drop has met its moment. So before I get to Kim's news, I wanted to see if there's anything else I needed to respond to. The coolest thing about the Super Bowl was the young 22-year-old rookie that scored out. We did that, right?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay. I appreciate that, though, Debbie. Thank you. I did.
Yeah.
I love it when rookies score. This on the ignoring of the courts and feeling like you shouldn't ignore the courts. Mars, who is a MAGA guy. There's an old clip of AOC, Mark, saying that Biden should ignore a court ruling. Funny. Well, Find me that clip, first of all. And secondly, let me explain who AOC is, and let me explain who the president is. They're two really different kinds of roles in American government. AOC, on her best, most effective day, is a congressperson with very limited ability to affect policy. President Trump and J.D. Vance, who made the comment that the court is out of line and essentially the administration should go on and just ignore the courts.
And Elon Musk.
And Elon Musk as well. They are the top three in government. They can literally ignore the courts and make it their policy to ignore the courts. They can ignore the Constitution. That's the difference between AOC and those who are now ignoring court orders.
I've been rolling this question around, trying to figure out how to ask it to you the best way. If the administration, the Trump administration, ignores the judicial branch and just blows off any court rulings, the repercussions would be what? Because now the president has immunity for anything he may do while in office. So doesn't the immunity ruling give him carte blanche to ignore the judicial branch and the congressional branch?
It gives him carte blanche to do a lot, and probably he can ignore. It becomes more of a constitutional crisis because you have two, if you will, constitutionally stipulated freedoms on the part of, well, they're coming together in a clash, right? One is you're bound by the strictures of the Constitution, and then the other is you're not bounded by anything because you are president, and which is what you're saying.
Total complete immunity.
Yeah, so that would
why would they ever pay attention to a court ruling or to anyone telling them what they can and can't do if they can pretty much do whatever they want without any consequences at all?
Well, here's the thing. It would be a way to allow the president to be not liable legally for anything because he is, again, blessed with that immunity. But what the actions, this is the way they might parse it or, slice it, the actions that the government would take that the president initiated, they are unconstitutional and illegal, if you want to think of it that way. And for that reason, they can't be implemented. That would be the way to split that baby, and that probably is the way they would split it. But if Trump, Musk, and Vance, and the coterie of people around them, if they are committed really to blowing off the courts and any kind of restriction and respect for the courts, you really have the coup that's even further out of the shadows than it is already. In my judgment, you have a coup already. You can say, well, I've discussed it here, regulars to the show. I think I've detailed and shown the math. But the most recent iteration of it is Musk going into the Treasury. This is a completely undeputized person. He was appointed. He went through no confirmation process, no background check. He is joined by these people who, again, went through no confirmation process, no background checks. They're everyone from 19 to 26-year-olds going in there. They're bringing their family in. As you know, one of them is bringing the wife and kid in. And you might say, well, that's... Yeah, I mean, these are government buildings with super sensitive, secure materials that they have just logged in on. And there may be technically a legal green light given by the new Commerce Department head, but what I'm suggesting is you have an infiltration of government on the part of Elon Musk and his minions on a level that really constitutes a coup.
If you speak against it, they say, oh, well, Mark, then you must be for waste, fraud, and abuse. Don't you get what they're trying to do? They're trying to save you money, Mark.
Well, and now there are loyalty test questions that accompany every hire. I mean, literally every hire in government, all across the FBI, all across the Justice Department. If you want a job, you must answer loyalty test questions. And then they do a background check on you to see about your Facebook posts, to see your X posts, all the stuff that might have revealed some kind of crack in your loyalty. These are the acts of an insecure despot. And I'd suggest that, we are sliding into the kind of soft despotism that you see in Hungary, with Orban. Again, it's different than this sort of rise of the Third Reich, although it quacks in some ways the same way. Richard Delamater says, my 27-year-old kid next door voted for Trump just because Kamala wouldn't go on Joe Rogan. Well, I mean, I have to say, you know how I felt. She should always have gone on Joe Rogan, and should always, all of these politicians should go on all of these shows. They're easy. They're so much easier than sitting down with mainstream media. It made no sense to me. You'll sit down with 60 Minutes, but you won't sit down with Joe effing Rogan? What, are you kidding? He'll ask you 4 hard questions, and you'll already have preloaded answers. Like, did you know that Joe Biden was as diminished cognitively? Blah, blah, blah. You'll have preloaded responses. Apart from that, it's going to humanize you. I don't think it would have influenced the election, but apparently Richard's next-door neighbor might have actually voted for Harris had it not been for that. I didn't see that last comment, sorry. Texnan says, here's a donation so Tony can afford to turn his cool toys back on. It gives a new meaning to dark times to not have those on. Yeah, where is all the Dave and Buster's stuff behind you?
I've been moving stuff around, so everything's just unplugged right now, and I haven't been home enough because too busy working. So,
well, Tex Stan would like to see all that stuff back on, Tony.
I'll work on it. I don't have time right now.
I'm just all right. Tony, get some love though.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah.
I think, did we see this one already with the pound?
Yeah, we did. We saw it already. But we do appreciate everybody who does support the show. Again, we are a crowd-funded show, and you in the crowd that fund us means an awful lot. Great Patreon and PayPal communities, and their Patreon and PayPal links under all of our videos. And I wanted to see if there's anything. First, Unapproachable Light says, first America, then the world. Yeah, exactly. That's the Musk, if not credo, that's underpinning philosophy. That's the underpinning philosophy.
You got another being busted by Delwood Kelp again.
Delwood Kelp, who's a big MAGA guy. Here we go again. Mark's daily attack on SpaceX. SpaceX is the only thing keeping America in the critical space race with China, our most important military enemy. Mark would shut SpaceX down. I'd make SpaceX play by the rules. I would. I think you way overstate it. I mean, that I don't have the comment in front of me anymore, but the idea somehow that it's our only chance to compete with the Chinese. Why do you say that? We used to have a vibrant space program. Why do you say, why? Because we privatized it? That's like me saying Blackwater, the old military merchants of
contractor, yeah.
Yeah, they're the contractor. I was going to say something. I paused because it would get me demonetized, so I can't say it. But those military contractors, if it weren't for them, we wouldn't have a military. Really? What do you mean? We have one of the best funded military. We'd have the best funded military in the world. I'd say one of, because most of the money's wasted. But the idea somehow that you're giving him all this credit, Elon Musk, for SpaceX, great. He's done good things with SpaceX, but NASA could have done those things as well. You realize that he has done a lot of that with your money, right, Delwood? That's your money, pal. Those tax dollars, you're getting Musk even, essentially, for his investment in SpaceX. I get it. He's doing good things, but let me ask you a question about NASA. Do you think, and the way we hold Musk to account, because he's not held to account, because of guys like you who just think he's so cool and he built SpaceX and he's amazing. Would NASA have been allowed to fire off so many rockets that they had to blow up because they never actually made it to escape altitude? Would you have been cool with that? Or would they have had to face the American taxpayer and questions from Congress about that? Well, Musk has to face none of those questions. He can blow up those rockets to his heart's content. So what happens is just that. A bunch of the rockets do get blown off. They go off course, etc. Again, he's not held to the same standard that we would hold NASA. That doesn't mean that SpaceX hasn't done anything breakthrough or innovative or interesting. They have. but I'm asking you to hold Musk to the same standard. And so when I was talking about Musk, and this is what prompted your question, all I was saying was he was in a huge back and forth with the FAA. And so he got rid of the FAA. And that apparently you're so snowflakey that one comment got you to talk about the fact that I'm so tough on Musk being in SpaceX. He's the only thing between us and China. Come on, man. That's not true, and you know it. A third of Elon's wealth is something. SpaceX is a continuation engineering derivative. NASA does new frontier science. I see. I mean, interesting, Dennis Fahey's saying that. The one thing I would say is about that, well, NASA used to run Space Shuttle. That was the most utilitarian use of space that I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, that wasn't new frontier science, unless they were doing science experiments like they're doing on the International Space Station. But you see what I'm saying. Look, it's a weird thing. I don't know how we got on this tangent, but when you talk about space exploration and SpaceX and NASA, I mean, some of these issues come up. The last thing I would say to you is we're not going to Mars, okay? This just in. We're not going to Mars. There will be no human mission to Mars in our lifetime. That's my prediction.
Colonizing it. I thought we were putting up houses and little space huts. We're not doing that?
It's this planet or bust. Oh. And that is what's happening. You cannot go to Mars. The radiation alone would kill you. Oh. It is unworkable. So
no total recall, like that whole thing is a no-go?
Sorry. Sorry. Anyway, look, if Tony can't have his Dave and Buster's machines on, we sure as hell can't get to Mars. You know that that's true, Tony.
I'll have him on next week.
All right. Make one of our listeners and viewers happy. Smash the like button.
Myself happy, but it's just I haven't had time.
The federal judges have weighed in on any number of decisions and pressure points when it comes to Musk and Trump. We'll get into a little bit of that. The watchers, who's watching over government? They're highly placed ethics officials that have places in U.S. government. What's happened to them? You can guess. We'll get into that as we continue. Kim's News, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by, since you already talked about Coachella, OneDayRouterandPlumbing.com.
Come on, One Day Router. I can't wait to talk about that.
At the end of this newscast, President Trump says peace is possible in the Middle East with the United States taking control of Gaza. Speaking alongside the King of Jordan today, Trump said the Gaza Strip is a war-torn region. He added Palestinians will be moved to what he calls a safer place. King Abdullah II pledged to take in 2,000 sick Palestinian children at that meeting. President Trump securing the release of an American teacher imprisoned in Russia. Trump's special envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, negotiated a deal with the Kremlin to release Mark Fogel. Fogel was arrested on charges of bringing medical marijuana into Russia in 2021. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will attend his first NATO meeting in Europe this week. The Pentagon saying the secretary will discuss a number of topics with NATO allies, including allied defense spending. Hegseth arriving in Stuttgart, Germany, and sharing photos on X of himself working out with the Marines there. Meanwhile, Hegseth has also renamed the North Carolina military base Fort Roland L. Bragg. He says, Bragg is back. The North Carolina base had been renamed Fort Liberty in 2023 as part of an effort under the Biden administration to remove names that honored Confederate leaders.
He's excited about this trip, that Hegseth, because it's all those pubs in Germany. Yeah, they don't close. They're up open all night. And then he said that those hot Polish chicks, he's looking forward to meeting them. Wow. So he's got an agenda and another agenda. He's got multiple agendas, that Pete Hegseth.
Are you here on business or pleasure, sir? Well, it's a little bit of both.
See you after the NATO meeting, baby. Yeah.
Steve Bannon, as mentioned, is pleading guilty to defrauding borders.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on. Thank you.
With an online fundraiser to build a border wall. Bannon, an ally of President Trump, pleaded guilty in exchange for a sentence with no prison time.
Yeah.
And Bannon defrauded donors of We Build the Wall, which is a fundraiser for himself.
There it is. WeBuildTheWall.us. It said, We Build the Wall wants you to buy a brick today. For those just listening, we have a still frame from the spot that ran. They ran the hell out of those spots, and they raised a lot of money.
Sure, yeah.
And it was all going to go to the wall, but as it turned out, it all went to,
Where's the bricks, Mark?
It all went to, they were still, to be fair, it takes time to find some brick people.
Yeah.
So that while they were looking for people who make the bricks, they use the money for themselves.
Hell to find a good mason these days. I don't know.
It was wrong. It was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
All right.
He serves a conditional discharge of 3 years, no prison. The Senate closing in on a final vote on Tulsi Gabbard's nomination for Director of National Intelligence. Gabbard cleared a major procedural hurdle last night on a vote of 52 to 46, so it was kind of close. Meanwhile, Senate GOP leaders expect to hold a procedural vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination for Health and Human Services Secretary very soon after that Gabbard vote is complete.
Wow, that's Batman and Robin right there, or Batman and Batgirl. That's RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard, if you're just listening. Yeah, they're on the stage. They are, that was at a campaign stop, the Trump-Vance campaign stop. That was them investing, and now the investment's paid off. They're both part of the new administration, it would seem.
You're looking at our nation's health and our nation's intelligence right there. That should scare all of us. A collapsed landing gear apparently caused a deadly plane crash. This one happened in Phoenix, involving a jet owned by Motley Crue lead singer Vince Neil. One person was killed in the Monday afternoon crash at Scottsdale Airport. 3 others were taken to hospital. TMZ is reporting Neil was not on the plane, but his girlfriend was and is currently in the hospital with broken ribs. So,
apparently it's really his plane was the one that really took a lot of the damage. So it doesn't surprise me that she's in the hospital if that's where she was on his plane.
Immigration and customs enforcement agents are reportedly planning a large-scale immigration raid in Los Angeles County by the end of this month. That according to the Los Angeles Times, which looked at an internal government document. The report says the raid will be led by ICE. The focus will be on people without legal status in the U.S. and those who already have pending orders of removal. The FBI and the DEA are also reportedly being called in to assist with this operation. And there is pushback on reporting of this nature as well. When you say that ICE is planning a large-scale immigration raid in Los Angeles County, then people feel like you're putting ICE agents at risk by even mentioning that a raid is coming. So this is a big flap, and apparently there are many stations that are now being investigated, television and radio stations being investigated for this type of reporting and possibly having their license taken away because they would dare to say that the raids are coming.
Yeah, it's a little different, but you're right. It's to be pure about it, it's a flavor of the same thing, which is that you're reporting on the fact that ICE agents are planning a raid, in this case in Los Angeles. We have no other specifics being reported. And what they are now talking about yanking the license around is the KCBS report. We have many San Francisco listeners where they said ICE agents today were rounding up illegal immigrants, allegedly, in 2 vehicles. One was, and they described the vehicles, okay?
Sure.
And to be fair, it's part of the news story, the specifics. They show up in a black Suburban and wearing this and that. And in so doing, immigration people are saying, no, you have now tipped off those people around whom they are building this raid. In other words, we're trying to get these people arrested and deported, and you're telling them what kind of car we're driving, where we were. But to be fair to KCBS, they were just reporting on an event, which was a police maneuver, right? I mean, police-related, law enforcement authority. I understand it's it's a Department of Homeland Security. And these ICE agents are traveling in these vehicles that they reported. I think you can see how it was just basic news reporting. They weren't saying right now avoid this area or whatever. They were saying this happened, wasn't it? It was earlier that day. Is that when it went down on the?
Yeah, it was
KCBS
earlier. It was earlier in the day, and at the scene there were a bunch of TV cameras, and so in radio you describe the scene as opposed to show it on film, right?
Sure.
So this is how we paint a picture in radio, so you know what's happening. You can kind of visualize it. What do we have that clip? Tell us about the scene. Yes, that's radio reporting, and that's what KCBS was doing.
Sure.
And now they come under fire for giving too much information. So
yeah, it's crazy though. But that's the lockdown and the clamping down on media, and it's real.
Yep.
So.
A fire-ravaged property in Altadena sold for $550,000. It's $100,000 over asking. The home that once stood on the property burned down in the Eaton fire last month, and the realtor says he fielded 20 to 30 calls a day about that property, and about a dozen offers were actually made for it. So this land is valuable, even burned out and damaged.
Wow, extraordinary.
Today, the leaders in Huntington Beach will be voting on whether or not to approve a suggested design for a $7,000 plaque to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the city's library. The design features a slogan that reads, "Magical, alluring, galvanizing, and adventurous." It spells out MAGA. So it's being called the MAGA plaque.
What?
Yeah. I know. $7,000 for a MAGA plaque. We'll see how the Huntington Beach city leaders vote on that one today.
Oh my God, that's wild.
I've never seen anything like it.
It's just unreal.
It is the end of the line for thousands of Meta employees. The Menlo Park-based company began handing out pink slips yesterday in an effort to eliminate about 5% of its workforce. Unclear how many of the approximately 3,600 employees being fired are Bay Area employees. They aren't the only Silicon Valley company to recently announce layoffs. Pleasanton-based Workday and San Francisco-based Salesforce also announcing layoffs this month. The budget cuts could be coming for the city of San Jose. The city looking at a potential $60 million budget shortfall in the next fiscal year. Mayor Matt Mahan says increased costs and smaller than predicted sales tax revenue are two of the bigger reasons for that deficit. If you watch the Super Bowl, you are not alone. It's setting a new ratings record for the second straight year. Sunday's game on Fox averaged 126 million viewers across all platforms, watching the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Kansas City Chiefs. It's a 2% increase over last year's game on CBS, which also broke records.
I wonder what that stuff has to do with. Probably, I mean, it's such a marginal increase, 2%, but I mean, it's clearly... I don't know. It's not important, but I always just, it sparks my curiosity, like why more people this year than last. But
Taylor Swift, Trump, who knows?
No, yeah. You're right. A couple of those externals might have mattered, yeah.
Yeah. Kanye West's website is no longer online. I know you're really upset about this, Mark.
No.
He tried selling a swastika shirt on his merchandise page. The Yeezy website now displays an error message. E-commerce platform Shopify said in a statement, "This merchant did not engage in authentic commerce practices and violated our terms, so we removed them from Shopify."
Wow.
Sayonara, sucker.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, you were done.
Sayonara, sucker.
That's it. And lastly, thousands of Danish citizens are launching their own effort to purchase the state of California from the United States.
Yeah.
The online petition has about 200,000 signatures and states that buying the Golden State would provide them with more sunshine, dominance in the tech industry, limitless avocado toast, and easy access to Disneyland. Can't argue with that. The petition, of course, comes in response to President Trump's push to acquire Greenland from Denmark. Republican legislators have pointed out Greenland's access to natural resources like oil, gas, minerals. That's their reason. And the United States, they say, should acquire the territory. But repeatedly, it's been pointed out that Greenland is not for sale. So now Denmark apparently launching an effort to buy California.
Oh, God, that's just so funny. It
We could
really
be
is great.
Danish citizens.
I'd be honored. I'd be honored. Apparently, the Danes are very happy.
Well, I think they have one of the best maternity policies. When you have a baby, they give you a year off and all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
Bring that to me. Sure.
I wonder, let me see if, are the Danes going to buy California? Mr. Predicto, I ask you, are the Danes going to buy California? It's been a while since we've used Mr. Predicto. He may not be awake. Oh, he is awake.
Okay.
Definitely yes.
Oh, that's great. So Mr. Predicto thinks the Danes will buy.
Okay.
Oh, wait. What?
There is no doubt.
No, my God.
Okay.
That's an extraordinary. Wait, Mr. Predicto, one more.
It's a double thumbs up.
I would not count on it.
Okay, well, I don't know. Mr. Predicto, you got to, and that's one of the reasons Mr. Predicto can be a little wish-washy.
That's so funny.
I think, we did awake him out of a slumber. It's been some time since we've
it's a little rusty, that Predicto.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet on, exactly. Wouldn't bet on the Predicto being accurate with his Predicto today.
Sometimes
yes.
it's incredibly hard to find a good plumber. So when you find one, you got to tell everybody you know, Mark.
I will tell you that I have a special announcement for people in Southern California. If you're in Los Angeles County or in Orange County, I've got a deal for you. And I found a plumber who's terrific. And it seems funny because I didn't think I'd fall in love with a plumbing service, but these guys are so terrific. And again, you can see if you're just listening, it's One Day Rooter and Plumbing. The one is the number one. OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com. They are available to you wherever you are in LA County or Orange County. They're licensed, insured, and bonded. And if you are a listener or a viewer of this show, just mention the Mark Thompson Show. You'll get 10% off anything. And if you're a senior military or first responder, you'll get an additional 5% off. So it's a total of 15% off anything they do for you. And they have sewer and drain experts standing by. Water leaks, drain leaks, gas leaks. They do it all. They say no job is too small or too big. They are terrific. And, it's funny. We found them through Courtney because we had a big plumbing project and we farmed it out to we weren't sure who, but we started getting a bunch of bids in and a bunch of opinions as to what the problem was because it wasn't clear what the problem was. And they are the only ones who, A, came in with a cost underneath everybody's, and they tried to find ways that we didn't need to do the most expensive stuff. They really worked with us to try to build in a plan and a strategy that would accommodate our needs without spending a bunch of money. So with that, I recommend them to you. OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com. You also, the email address there, if you want to reach them, info@OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com. Info@OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com. And their phone number, 626-702-0202. All those ways, but mostly I think you can reach them on the website, which has all that information as well. Again, OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com. We love them as a little sponsorship that we started, and I hope that they get a little action in Southern California from our listeners.
Orange County and Los Angeles County, and you've got that discount, right?
Yeah, 10% off if you simply mention us. A subtle mention will do. And if you're military or senior or first responder, extra 5%. Bravo. It is, I think, the last plumber you'll ever need. Yeah, how about that? I know. OneDayRooterandPlumbing.com.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is The Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Right on, everybody, right on. It's our big Tuesday show. People still squawking about the Super Bowl, and Trump was at the Super Bowl, and Taylor Swift was at the Super Bowl. Everybody was watching the Super Bowl. We've moved on. The government's being jacked. Screw the Super Bowl. Michelle Walton with a $5 super chat says, I sent your podcast with Greg Palast to Kamala, And the next day, I saw a meme on Facebook with his figures and her face on it. Wow. Now, Michelle Walton is talking about the palaced evidence that there was such widespread voter suppression permitted in many of these swing states. Wisconsin, Georgia, two that he really focused on, was able to actually see so many of these constituencies being eliminated from the voter rolls. And sometimes you don't know that you've been eliminated, was the palace point, until after the election. And you can file some kind of protest, but it also takes weeks for that to be adjudicated. So your vote means nothing. I mean, they're inaugurating Donald Trump while you're still waiting like, hey, guys, I didn't get a chance to even get a ballot. So there is high art to it. And yet, in the face of that evidence, we would have liked to have seen some pushback from the Harris people. There was such a stink around protesting the vote, right? Around 2020, right? The fix was in. It wasn't fair. It was a stolen election. The big lie, right? They stole the election. So much of a stink on that Democrats were particularly loath to mention that they had a problem. They wanted to sort of demonstrate the smooth transfer of power, like there was some virtue in tapping out and just conceding. Well, there's virtue in conceding if the race is legitimate. If it's not, then I think you should point out those areas of illegitimacy. And certainly the court cases, some of which Greg Palast has pursued, they should be pursued or should have been pursued. They can still be pursued. But I'm just looking to see if there's anything else. Thank you, though, for that. Michelle says her vote was not counted. Underdog says we were robbed. Love to Bud says the Gulf of Mexico.
They changed it now. It's officially the Gulf of America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sad, love to. It's going to be a tough day for you. It's now the Gulf of America. Tony has it up for you there now. Yeah.
It's, if it's on Google Maps, it's official.
I mean, it's just so silly. I don't know. I mean, it's like if you asked an 11-year-old what they would do if they became president, they go, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to change everything. I'm going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. That's good. Actually, 11-year-old probably more like an 8-year-old. It's crazy. You can tell I have kids. I don't have kids because all the kids sound like that to me when they talk. They all sound like that. But
if you log in from Mexico, though, it says Gulf of Mexico. But if you log in from America, it says Gulf of America. This is what I understand. Yeah.
Randy says, zoom in on Google Maps. It will eventually show Gulf of Mexico still. I see, but you think it's geo-specific, Kim?
I think
that is
so.
to say, yeah, it depends where you're logging in from.
Sure.
Yeah. Why not take the Gulf thing out? Just go America, I mean, why do you need the Gulf thing, man? Stop insulting 8-year-olds, Mark, says commentator. Well, there is a trade war underway, I believe. Maybe 47 will rename Florida to Trumpeta. Yeah, says
sure.
Darwin Kuhn. Yeah. I mean, the renaming thing is so much fun. Why not do it? Yeah. There's a trade war underway, and it's unclear as to why, but the trade war has started with these tariffs. And I say trade war, I mean, the real intensity of the war has yet to be determined, but it's Canada, Mexico, and China. A group of Democrats calling on Trump to retract the tariffs. But here was their letter. They sent it last week. As members of the House and Ways and Means Committee, I'll just give you a sentence of it. We urge you to retract your order for across-the-board tariffs on imports from Canada and Mexico before they go into effect. Your use of tariffs as a bargaining chip to settle non-trade issues is counterproductive to the goal of revitalizing manufacturing and bringing back American jobs. The well-being of American workers, families, and businesses should never be gambled for the sake of scoring political points. I mean, that's great. That's, from a bunch of Democratic congresspeople. But there are 25% tariffs that do appear to be slapped on Mexico, Canada, and China. I'm really unclear on what concessions Trump hopes to get. There was that back and forth where Trump was crowing about concessions that were given to him that were already in place, the 10,000 troops at the border, et cetera. You know the deal. So I'm unclear as to what he wants now. It does feel, and there's a lot of the Trump world that is this, as I've told you, it's kind of an oversized masculinity. It's like a toxic masculinity. There's a lot of Trump world that's about a flex. They just flex for some reasons that just have to do with, I want to show you I'm the most powerful man on earth. That's why the Gulf of America, I mean, that stuff, it just doesn't matter. It's just a silly flex. And then when you get to the tariffs, you get to an important flex because you can really throw markets into a tailspin that way. And in the background, lurking, are the tax cuts. And he wants to find ways to fund those tax cuts. So on some level, there may be connective tissue between those two things. Meantime, Trump quietly firing watchdog overseers in his government. Hampton Dellinger is the head of the Office of Special Counsel of the Justice Department. He was fired, but now he's fighting back with a lawsuit. Isn't that right, Kim? He was in charge of overseeing whistleblower complaints against the government and enforcing the laws meant to tamp down undue political influence in American politics.
Yeah,
And
he's the guy that roots out corruption in the government.
exactly. And he was
The Trump
fired.
administration said, "You're out."
He was fired via email. And again, he's gotten rid of the inspectors general, and he, for the most part.
Yeah.
And now he gets rid of this guy. And then I believe, largely maybe as a result of this court case, there was an attempt to get him back into government. Isn't that what happened?
Yeah, the judge said, "You can't fire that guy. You got to rehire him now."
So the
And
judge has unfired the very guy that Trump had fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The judge says to Trump, terminated ethics watchdog, you are unfired now. So Hampton Dellinger wins an order allowing him to remain in his job, but only for now. We'll see if he can survive the Trump administration and their efforts to root him out.
The last thing I'll just mention in regards to things coming out of the Oval Office is related to, I've called them these flexes because I think that's sort of what's happening. It all falls into that category, but some of them are dramatic and hugely consequential. And what I mean by that is, for example, the statements on Gaza. I mean, the Gaza statements were so absurd that there was a kind of a beginning of walking them back the next day, even by Trump. I'm not sure that I'm not saying that American troops are going to be there, but I'm just saying that we have plans for that area. So, and then, of course, he did double down. He leaned into it in the Bret Baier interview. He said, no, I'm talking about this piece of land that could be something special, and it's been, destroyed now, but we could make it into, and he even said, you have to look at this like a real estate development deal. It's like,
I think he looks at everything like a real estate deal.
Well, the Saudis are furious as a result of this. Basically, the entire world isn't good with this. But the reason the Saudis are important is because they're in the region, as are the Jordanians. And of course, he's meeting with the King of Jordan, I think, today, and the Egyptians as well. Those are just a handful of the parties who would be directly involved in any kind of relocation, which is, again, I don't see any of this happening, but it's talked about by Trump. And you also have the UAE and all of the other Middle Eastern countries that are, I'm sure, appalled, and they cannot, given the relationship of those governments to the street, to the Arab street, they cannot be signatories to anything like this. It is way, way reckless. But it's not only that. The Danes are scrambling, as is noted. I mean, around this Greenland thing. Colombia backed down from the first week of the administration. There is unclear development in the trade war with Mexico and China, as I said, and the stuff that Trump is doing is worrying even the Brits. which is a country with a special relationship with the United States. So, as is noted here, everyone, it seems, is responding to Trump. Even Australia's leader, when asked last week for his thoughts only a few hours after Trump had announced the U.S. would take over the decimated Gaza Strip and turn it into, quote, the Riviera of the Middle East, he said this, but listen to how guarded the guy is. He said, I'm not going to, as Australia's prime minister, give a daily commentary on statements by the U.S. president. Like he's trying to, like, you know, everybody wants to stay at arm's length with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledged publicly or not, world leaders are watching Trump's wood chipper approach to some American government institutions and wondering about those of the post-Cold War order. What of the U.S. roles in NATO, the United Nations, the World Bank? On U.S.-controlled NATO, Trump has long questioned the value of the pact and threatened not to defend members of the alliance that failed to meet defense spending goals. On his first day back in the Oval Office, Trump began to pull the United States out of the World Health Organization, an act that would leave the UN agency without its biggest donor. WHO leaders huddled over a response and asked diplomats to lean on Washington to reverse Trump's decision. A German envoy worried out loud, the roof is on fire. Trump's actions portend a permanent shift in the landscape. This is a quote, not just a switch that flips back in 4 years' time. That's according to a political and international affairs expert in London. Outside of leadership circles, anyone who depends on the U.S. for aid, food, and medicine is coming to grips with the life and death implications of not having it after Trump's drive to dismantle USAID and its 6-decade mission to stabilize countries by providing humanitarian aid. The Vatican charity voiced outrage Monday at what it called unhuman U.S. plans to gut USAID. Emboldened by his re-election and with help from presidential friend Elon Musk, Trump has unleashed his signature chaos by distraction on the entire world. And it goes on. This is a lengthy piece that talks about the flooding the zone, the entire policy, which is some distraction, some flex, as I say, some, I'd suggest, kind of a knee-jerk response to what he just may have heard in the hallway. He's quite untethered right now. And I don't know what the results will be. I really don't.
Well, this is what America wanted. This is what America voted for. And according to the CBS YouGov poll that Tony and I looked at yesterday, 53% approval rating for Trump. It's a pretty high one. And so America seems happy with the way things are progressing.
I don't know also how much America knows. You know, I'm always curious about that. I get that every little thing moves the meter on this show. I think most people aren't that way. Look, there are people here who are regulars within our community going, I got to get away from politics for a while. I mean, that's perfect. Perfect. That's exactly what Trump wants. And that's exactly what the Project 2025 people want and Bannon wants. You flood the zone, people are overwhelmed, they're fatigued, they just give up. That's exactly the plan. So, you know, again, we reported here a lot of this stuff we don't get to because there is so much. But eventually, I hope that we at least shed enough light on things that, you know, you understand what's happening. And then, hey, man, if you want, you know, if it's not, I have Trumpies in my family. I have Trumpies who I work with. I mean, I get it, you know. Do you know why USAID is so important? Asked Deirdre Lozica. There's a reason we do not have an outbreak of Ebola and other viruses running amok on American shores. Such a great comment. You know, it's funny how we have this view of terrorism, like get them over there so that, you know, before they get them, we get it over here. But we can't seem to understand that when it comes to global health and just the basics of global health. And by the way, it's socioeconomic health too. I mean, raise those communities up so that you don't end up with the disintegration of society in so many different places in the world. You can't educate. You can educate and inform, says issue writer, the public of his evil sociopath fascist tactics, but never call Trump a genius. Yeah, if you missed it, I say that he is genius in the way that he communicates with the public and finds that thing that really lands cleanly with his crew, like DEI is his thing, right? The wokeness is his thing. And that, look, everybody's doing it now. But Trump is, in my judgment, a singular figure in American politics in his ability to bring the charisma and the sales technique to his, vacuous, completely transactional view of American government. He has no sense of policy. He just wants self-enrichment and stuff that he can advertise to his people. Like, I've changed Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. I've got tariffs on. These are all flexes, and his people respond well to it. Cousin Erie says Tony Stark made the ultimate sacrifice to save the universe. Hard to see Elon doing the same. Reality. Yeah. I forgot about the Tony Stark. Where is he? Oh. He after Iron Man, he kind of gave it all up, didn't he? And Trump's got his brown shirts, says Jed Mack. The January 6th thugs out there, and ICE is acting like a Gestapo. Yeah, I mean, I agree that the brown shirts really have been enabled by his pardon, no question about it. Elon and Dana White told Rogan not to interview Kamala Harris, says Rev P. Well, it's interesting. Just because you mentioned this, I'll do this in less than a minute. No, that's not right. That's not
true.
Yeah, that's not right. In fact, she was offered the Rogan spot, and the Rogan people were told that she couldn't make it work in the time frame that they wanted. Could she participate remotely? Isn't that what you heard, Tony? That's what I thought.
No. That's not at all what happened. Basically, honestly, what happened was she said, you have to fly out here, like the Call Me Daddy people. They made them and built them the studio there. Basically, he had to fly to Washington, D.C. and do it there. And he's all, no, I do it in my studio.
Oh,
you have to come here.
I see Rogan.
Rogan wasn't going to go out there. He's like, I have my show here. You come here.
I see. I don't know why she couldn't do that. I mean,
that's why she wanted basically from what everything I read and things, they wanted to control the space.
I read that that's why she did a rally in Houston with Beyonce, because she was going to head to Texas to be on the Joe Rogan show. Somehow it didn't work out.
I don't know about that.
Rogan's always said that, no, he wanted her to talk to her. He's like, I want to talk to her. So he said that multiple times. So I don't know, unless he was lying on the show and everyone associated said that he's lying. I don't know.
Yeah. No. I mean, I believe him. I mean, I think that she should have done it. But
I know, like with the Call Her Daddy thing Kamala did, they built, recreated the entire set in
so
Washington,
that she could
DC
do it up in Washington. Yeah, exactly.
Because she didn't want to go there.
Can we swap California for Greenland? How dare you, Mo Direct? And Elon is buying a country, says Janice. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some truth to that. He's certainly bought power. It's worked. It really has. He had a plan. Well, I am...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I don't know what's happened today. I started the show with arguing with Kim. If you missed it, you should go back and find that. And Tony's got to set us straight on the Rogan thing.
Again, it's just what I've read.
We had a great conversation with Jayar Jackson from TYT. Tomorrow, David K. Johnston, who would have been here today, joins us tomorrow, along with John Rothman, the professor on politics, and Belinda Weymouth with It's the Planet Stupid. Wow, it's quite an impressive crew. So, what does this say? Yeah, swap California for Greenland, and then who helps pay for the red states? Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're picking up the tab for the whole table. Yeah,
I don't think Greenland can afford it. No.
The after party next continues with Kim and
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
The after party live. Go meet with Kim over there.
Our time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you being here, and bye-bye.